Okay, class, we're going to start in on multi-step inequalities. And this is going to be very similar to solving equations, only this time we have the inequality symbol such as greater than or less than. So let's look at example 1. We've got 7 plus 6a is greater than 19. Okay, we need to get a by itself. And you treat this inequality sign as though it were an equal sign. We can even draw a line if that helps. We can draw a line to help us keep track of the two different sides of the equations. And then what we want to do is we want to get 6a by itself. So we're going to subtract 7 from both sides. Okay, so then we end up with 6a is greater than 19 minus 7, which we get 12. And then we divide both sides by 6. I apologize for the handwriting. I will get used to this mouse, I hope. Divide both sides by 6. So then the 6's cancel, and we get a is greater than 2. So we get a is greater than 2. And then we can graph this just like we did yesterday. I want you to show a graph on these solutions. So if we were to graph this, we draw our number line like we did yesterday's video. Let's put 2 on the graph, and then we'll put 2 to the right and 2 to the left. So we got 3 and 4. And then on this side we have 1 and we have 0. And then because it's not an or equals 2, that means we have an open circle at 2. So we put an open circle at 2. And then we want all values of a that are greater than 2. So then we can graph this set of solutions as well as solve it. Alright, so that's the first one. Let's go ahead and look at the next one. We have negative 3x minus 4 is less than or equal to 14. Okay, again, you can draw the line if that helps you. We want to get the negative 3x by itself, so then we add 4 to both sides. Add 4 to both sides. So then our 4's cancel, and we bring down our negative 3x is less than or equal to 18. Now, here is where the difference comes in when we are doing an equation or an inequality as opposed to an equation. When you divide or multiply by a negative number, you have to flip the inequality symbol. So we're going to end up having to divide by a negative 3. And because of that, we are going to have to flip our inequality symbol. So we're going to get x, and instead of being less than or equal to, it's going to become greater than or equal to, and then 18 divided by negative 3 is negative 6. So that's our solution. X is greater than or equal to negative 6. So you have to just remember that when you are dividing or multiplying by a negative number at the very end, you have to flip that inequality symbol. And then to graph these solutions, we'll put negative 6 on our graph, and then we'll label 2 to the right and 2 to the left, so we have negative 5, and we have negative 4. And then over here we have negative 7, and we have negative 8. Okay, so then we have to decide if we have an open or a closed circle on 6. We have a closed circle because it's or equal to on negative 6. So we put a closed circle, and we want all values of x that are greater than or equal to negative 6, so we want to go to the right. And that is how we graph those solutions. So you just have to remember that difference is when you divide or multiply by a negative number on both sides of the inequality, then you have to flip that inequality symbol. Okay, so let's go ahead and look down at example C. Alright, so for example C, okay, what we have to do on these is we now have parentheses. So we're going to have to do the distributive property. So again, just like solving a regular equation. So we get 2t plus 4 minus 3t is greater than or equal to 1. Okay, So then, now that we've done our distributive property, the next step in solving an equation is to combine our like terms. So we need to combine our 2t and our negative 3t. When we take 2t minus 3t, we end up with negative 1t, and then bring our plus 4 down. So negative 1t plus 4 is greater than or equal to 1. And then we have to get the negative 1t by itself, so we're going to go ahead and subtract 4 from both sides. Okay, so we get negative 1t is greater than or equal to, and then 1 minus 4 gives you negative 3. All right, and then we want to get t by itself, so we're going to divide by a negative 1. And then because we're dividing by negative 1, we have to flip that inequality symbol. So our answer becomes t is less than or equal to, and then negative 3 divided by negative 1 is a positive 3. So we have all values of t that are less than 3. Okay, so that's example C. We do the same thing on letter D. Okay, we do our distributive property, but we're going to do distributive property on both sides of the inequality symbol. So here we get negative 12, and the negative 3 times negative m gives us a positive 3m. That is greater than or equal to, okay, and then we get 7 times 2m, that gives us 14m. And then 7 times negative 3, that gives us negative 21. Okay, now, it's important that we keep track of the sides of the equation that we're on. We either need to get the 3m over to the 14m side, or we need to get the 14m to the 3m side. Remember, because they're on opposite sides of the inequality symbol, we can't just combine them. So what we need to do, what we'll go ahead and do is we'll take the 3m and move it to the other side. So we get negative 3m. We're going to take away 3m from both sides. And we're going to take the 3m away from the 14m. That will cancel our 3m's on that side, and we bring down our negative 12. Our negative 12 has to be greater than or equal to, and then 14m minus 3m gives us 11m. And then bring down, that's a negative 21. Bring down the negative 21. All right, so now we've gotten our m's taken care of, so now we need to get the 21 over with the 12. So we're going to add 21 to both sides. So add 21 to both sides. Negative 12 plus 21 is going to give you a 9, so you're going to get 9 is greater than or equal to 11m. Okay, now we want to get the m by itself, so we're going to go ahead and divide by 11 on both sides. And then we're going to just go ahead and keep this as a fraction. Okay, so m, sorry, let me rewrite that again. So we get 9 over 11 equals m, or is greater than or equal to m. So we have 9 over 11, and then the 11's cancel, so we get 9 over 11 is greater than or equal to m. Okay? And then we can just flip that around to make it make more sense. But if we flip the 2 around, we have to flip the inequality symbol. So we can say m is, and then we still want the pointy part facing the m, is less than or equal to 9 over 11. Because it makes more sense when we put the variable on the left. But when you do flip it, you have to flip that inequality symbol. Okay, so as you can see, this is very similar to solving equations. The only difference is if you divide by a negative number, you have to just flip your inequality symbol. Okay? So let's look at this next problem. We have a school band that needs a banner to carry in a parade. The banner committee decides that the length of the banner should be 18 feet. What are the possible widths of the banner if they can use no more than 48 feet of trim? So when we're talking about trim on a banner, we're talking perimeter. And the perimeter of a rectangle is P equals 2L plus 2W. Okay? What they tell us is that length, okay, the length has to be 18 feet. we need to figure out what the width will be if we can have a perimeter be has to be no more than 48 feet of trim. So the perimeter has to be less than or equal to 48. Okay, so it says no more than 48, which means we can have 48, but we can't have anything more than that. Okay, so if we know that the perimeter has to be less than or equal to 48, so to figure out perimeter, we do 2L plus 2W. We know that that has to be less than or equal to 48. We know that that has to calculate to be less than or equal to, it has to be less than or equal to 48. And then we can go ahead and plug in what L is, because L we know has to be 18 no matter what we do. So 2 times 18 plus 2W has to be less than or equal to 48. So then we can solve this. 2 times 18 is 36. 36 plus 2W is less than or equal to 48. Okay, so then what we can do is solve this equation. We're going to subtract 36 from both sides. Okay, for that I'll bring up the ink here. So we subtract 36 from both sides. Okay, now 48 minus 36, that's going to give us 12. So we get 2W is less than or equal to 12. And then if we divide both sides by 2, you get W is less than or equal to 6. So what that means is the width for this banner can be, it has to be 6 feet or less. Okay, so width has to be 6 feet or less is what that is saying. So then to answer our question, width must be less than or equal to 6 feet. And so that would be the answer to our problem. And this is how we use inequalities in word problems. Thank you for listening.